Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into the sandals of a real Roman gladiator, and not just for show. You're waking up inside a training school where the beds are stone slabs, the air smells like blood and brass, and your odds of living past the month depend entirely on how well you dodge sharp things. This isn't the Hollywood version with polished armor and slow-motion swordplay. No, tonight, you're surviving the brutal rhythm of a full day in the life of a gladiator in training. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, let me know in the comments where you're watching from, and what time it is where you are. I love seeing how far this sleepy little community stretches across the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake up sore. That's the first sensation. Dull aches, fresh bruises, maybe a cracked rib or two. Your cell is small, a little stone rectangle with bars instead of a door. Your sleeping mat is straw, and your blanket is thin, itchy wool. The air is damp and carries the sharp sting of sweat, urine, and the faint coppery hint of old blood. There's no pillow. Your helmet sits nearby, dented from yesterday's sparring. A rat scuttles under your cot, as if on its own grim little training schedule. Someone yells. Latin. Barked. It's still dark, but the ludus, the gladiator school, is already waking. You haul yourself up, joints cracking, and join the others stumbling into the corridor. The floor is packed earth, and it's cold. You hear sandals scuffing, the occasional cough, and one groggy insult muttered in Greek. The group is a mix, some slaves like you, some condemned criminals, a few volunteers. Yes, people actually volunteered to become gladiators. Historians still argue whether they did it for fame, debt relief, or just pure lunacy. Your cohort is about 30 men strong. You know half their names. The others you know by what they did: the arsonist, the thief, the German. One is just called Lump, and it's not because he's friendly. There's a quick head count. A wooden tally board is marked. Someone's missing. Not uncommon. Could be an injury, or maybe he died in the night. Nobody asks. You head to the courtyard. It's not glamorous. There's no marble, no mosaics, just a wide open space ringed with torches and the faint smell of horses. The dirt here is packed tight from years of stomping feet and spilled blood. A wooden post stands in the center, nicked and scarred like a battle veteran. That's where you'll swing your sword today. The doctors, your instructors, arrive. They wear clean tunics, leather belts, and an air of smug detachment. One of them used to fight in the arena, and walks with a limp that makes him look somehow more dangerous. Another is built like a tree and carries a switch he's not shy to use. You're not allowed real weapons yet. Just wooden swords, rudies, and padded shields. Still, those can bruise worse than iron if your opponent has good aim. And they usually do. The warm-up is cruel. Running laps around the yard, full armor or not. Jumping exercises. Push-ups until your arms tremble. Then come the drills, blocking high, ducking low, thrusting forward, spinning back. You repeat the same 3 motions over and over until your muscles burn and your brain forgets how to do anything else. You're paired off with a wiry man named Gaius today. He's missing 3 teeth but still manages a smug grin every time he tags you in the ribs. When you land a hit on his leg, he grunts approvingly. You're improving, he says, panting. Won't die before summer, maybe. You eat something back that's half insult, half thanks. Meanwhile, a younger recruit vomits into the dirt nearby. No one stops. The trainers barely blink. One of them offers the kid a sarcastic bean factum, then orders him back into stance. You pass by a water barrel, its surface already murky with floating dust and a suspicious bit of straw. You splash your face anyway. It helps, a little. Your mouth tastes of iron and grit. As the sun rises, casting gold across the compound. Your shirt is soaked through with sweat. The wood of your rudies is slick in your hands. Your arms feel like they're made of wet linen. One guy faints. Not from a wound, just pure exhaustion. The trainers step over him and tell the rest of you to keep going. Eventually a slave drags him off by the heels. It's easy to forget that your job isn't just to fight. It's to perform. That means you're drilled not just in combat, but in how to fall convincingly, when to grunt, even how to die with dramatic flair. Gladiators were Rome's reality TV. Audiences didn't want efficiency, they wanted spectacle. Historians still argue whether the average gladiator match ended in death or just defeat. But either way, you'd better make it memorable. After an hour of drills, you're told to stop. Just stop. No explanation. The trainers walk off. That's the end of morning training. Your arms are jelly. Your calves feel like they've been wrung out. You lean against a post and notice your hands are shaking, not from fear, but just from effort. You did all that before breakfast. And it's only going to get harder from here. You trudge toward the dining courtyard, each step heavier than the last. Your muscles are trembling, not from fear but from sheer fatigue. Even the simplest motion, like lifting your arms to wipe the sweat from your eyes, feels like a monumental task. The wooden sword you used during drills has left its imprint on your palms, forming small blisters already beginning to sting beneath layers of grit. The morning's training was short, but brutal. That's by design. Your instructors don't want you fresh. They want you worn down, half-shattered, and still obedient. Because that's what the arena demands. Not strength alone, but discipline under duress. The breakfast line moves slowly. You're handed a bowl of barley porridge thickened with goat's milk. Sprinkled with dried figures, a small chunk of salted pork is added without ceremony. A piece of flat bread, cracked and still warm, is shoved into your hand. The portions are surprisingly generous. Gladiators are an investment, and starving them doesn't pay off. You sit down on a stone bench. Not because it's comfortable, but because your legs can't take standing another minute. Around you, other fighters eat in silence or half-conscious mumbling. The atmosphere is weary and primal, just bodies refueling after damage. Conversation is minimal. Everyone's lungs are still recovering from the drills. The food is dense and bland, but it does its job. You eat without tasting. Every bite feels necessary, almost medicinal. Occasionally, a low groan escapes someone nearby as they shift and discover a new bruise. You try not to imagine what your back looks like right now. You'll know soon enough. Once the bowls are empty, there's no time to linger. You make your way to the infirmary. It's a low-roofed annex at the edge of the training yard, perpetually smelling of boiled vinegar, herbs, and sweat. A long wooden bench runs along one wall, stained dark from years of blood, oil, and other fluids no one talks about. There's a kind of resignation in the air here, like a waiting room for pain that's already happened. The medicus, a balding man with a sun-browned face and permanently ink-stained hands, checks you over with practiced indifference. Your side is swollen and bruised from an unlucky blow with Gaius's shield earlier. He presses it, harder than necessary, and nods. Not broken. No ceremony. He daubs a brown-green paste on the bruising that stings fiercely for 3 seconds and then goes numb. It's oddly comforting. The man next to you is having a split eyebrow sewn shut with coarse thread. Another has a splint tied to 2 fingers. Nothing here is delicate. Everything is functional. Efficiency over empathy. You watch, detached, as a young recruit, barely older than 16, staggers in with a limp and sits on the edge of the bench, trying not to cry as someone raps his knee. You were like that once. New. Confused. Shocked by how quickly your body could betray you. But the strangest part? You've adapted. The routine is brutal, but the predictability of it has become soothing in its own way. You know what happens next. You know that the pain will come, and pass, and return again. You know what the drills feel like. You even know which parts of your body will ache tomorrow. There's a grim clarity in that. You step outside again, sun blinking through the narrow courtyard, and stretch your arms slowly. They creak in protest. Near the water trough, a few of the veterans are lounging in the dust, comparing wounds and arguing about the best way to take a stomach cut without spilling your intestines. It's not just bravado, it's strategy, knowledge, passed like gossip. Not all wounds are equal. Some make the crowd cheer. Others make you forget how to breathe. Your training isn't just physical. It's performative. The crowd wants to see pain that looks poetic. Falls that seem noble. Wounds that spray at just the right moment. That's why you're drilled not just on killing techniques, but on collapsing gracefully, on reacting big for shallow cuts, and dying with just enough delay to let the cheers crest. Historians still argue whether gladiators were true warriors or simply entertainers with high mortality rates. But here, it doesn't matter. You're both. A living paradox of power and captivity. You kill with flair, or you don't last. As you stand quietly near the archway to the next training yard, you feel the beginnings of another headache forming behind your eyes. Probably dehydration. Or maybe tension from the knowledge that your name could be called next for a surprise bout. That happens sometimes. Mid-morning. Without warning. You look around and realize who's missing. 2 men from your dormitory didn't show up for drills today. No one mentioned it. No one needs to. One was limping yesterday. The other hadn't spoken for 2 days. Maybe they're resting. Maybe they're gone. The line between the two is thin. The clang of iron on bronze echoes from the center of the ludus. A trainer striking a gong with a hammer. Weapon inspection. You exhale slowly. There's no time to recover. Not here. You have to keep moving. You wipe your face with the edge of your tunic, shake the tension from your arms, and make your way toward the rack of practice gear. The sun is higher now, and the dust glows in its light like suspended ash. The day's just getting started. The practice weapons are laid out on long wooden racks, pitted and worn from use. You scan the options, already familiar with your assigned training set: a wooden gladius, stubby and deceptively heavy, and a rectangular scutum with the splintered edge of 1,000 failed parries. There's no glamour here. No polished steel or theatrical flair. Only repetition. Only survival. This part of the day is deceptively quiet. No shouting. No drills. Just the rhythmic clatter of wood on wood as men test the balance of their gear. You run your hand along the edge of your training sword, checking for cracks. One splintered handle could mean a broken finger or worse. The trainers won't stop the session if you're hurt. They'll just tell the next man to step in while you bleed. You secure your arm guards and adjust the chin strap of your helmet. It's made of leather, reinforced with bronze, and smells like stale breath and anxiety. The padding sticks to your temple. Sweat has already soaked through from earlier. Your tunic, short, sleeveless, rough cotton, is streaked with dust. You tighten the belt around your waist, not for fashion, but to brace your core. It helps when you get hit. A little. After everyone is geared up, the group gathers in rows. A trainer walks the line slowly, eyes flicking from hand grips to posture to footwork. He says nothing, just nods or grunts. But when he stops in front of someone and frowns, it's not good. You don't want attention. Not now. He passes you with a brief look. Neutral. Safe. You exhale without realizing you were holding your breath. Today's drill focuses on weapon pairing. You're matched again with Gaius, not by choice, but by rotation. He nods at you without speaking. Neither of you have the energy for banter this time. You stand opposite one another on a dusty patch of earth, worn smooth by months of sparring. The sun presses down harder now. There's barely any shade. Your feet leave imprints in the soil. The exercise begins. Block high, counter low, step to the right, thrust forward, back pedal, reset, over and over. Your arms fall into rhythm. The shield becomes an extension of your left side, the sword an impatient pulse in your right. You can feel when a strike lands well, even with wooden blades. It hums through your bones, sharp and satisfying. Today, you work on technique with specific weapons. Gaius trains with a sickle, the curved Thracian sword. You've got the standard gladius, which favors close-quarters jabs. The clash of these two styles is deliberate. It forces you to anticipate awkward angles, feints, and rotational strikes. The trainers want you disoriented now, so you'll be instinctive later. Gladiators were categorized by weapon types, and you're beginning to see why. Thrax, Murmillo, Retiarius, Secutor. Each had its own strengths, weaknesses, and flair for spectacle. You're being molded into a Murmillo, short sword, heavy armor, broad shield. The tank, basically, crowd favorites. They love it when a Murmillo holds his ground. Historians still debate the origins of some of these classes. Were they symbolic, tactical, ethnic caricatures? No one agrees. But what's certain is that the diversity made the fights more like stage plays than battles. Every matchup was curated. Opposites, contrasts, theater of violence. The morning slips toward noon. The drills become faster, more unpredictable. The trainers call out random commands in rapid Latin. You must respond without hesitation, even if your body is screaming otherwise. Punishments for sluggish reflexes come swiftly: a whack with a staff, a knockdown, sometimes a session with a heavier shield. A fringe practice begins near the edge of the yard. A handful of men are training with reet and tridents, net and trident. The retiarii. They look almost absurd from a distance, like fishermen at war. But there's grace in their technique. They fight light, fast, almost naked. No helmet, minimal armor, pure agility. And the trident, it gleams even in wood. Slow to recover, but devastating when it lands. You watch one of them spin in place, tossing his net in a spiral arc that lands perfectly over his partner's arm. The crowd will love that kind of show. So will the gamblers. Meanwhile, your shield arm is starting to go numb. You adjust your grip. The wooden boss at the center is digging into your palm, and you can already tell you'll have a blister by evening. Gaius lunges, and you instinctively deflect and pivot, dragging your foot just in time. Dust kicks up into your face. You blink through the grit. The trainer calls a stop. Just like that, the session ends. No cooldown, no applause, just silence and sweat and the dull ache behind your knees. You head toward the shade near the wall, unsling your shield, and collapse onto a low stone bench. Nearby, someone is retching into a water bucket. Another fighter peels off his chest plate to reveal a shoulder so bruised it looks like rotten fruit. The heat is rising. The smell of warm leather, dust, and blood creates a scent so specific it almost deserves its own name. You close your eyes briefly and lean back. Your breath is shallow, steady. There's a sensation in your chest, not quite pride, not quite relief. More like the calm that comes after weathering a storm. It's fleeting. You know another one is coming. The midday bell will ring soon. And after that, the baths. The midday bell rings with a flat clang, metal on metal, muffled slightly by the rising heat. You push yourself off the bench, your limbs protesting with every shift. The yard is quiet now, save for the groans of men removing their gear and the low muttering of instructors who never seem to tire. You move slowly, carrying your helmet and shield back to the storage racks. Every motion is deliberate. There's no sprinting now, only limping dignity. The short walk to the bathing area gives your legs a chance to lock into a manageable rhythm. Past a cracked archway and through a dark corridor, the air changes. It's cooler here, damper. You hear the splash of water and the echo of conversation bouncing off stone walls. The Ludus bathhouse isn't luxurious by Roman standards, but compared to the training yard, it's a paradise. The floors are smooth tile, surprisingly clean. A wide pool sits at the center, its water faintly tinged with mineral deposits and the sour trace of old sweat and herbs. Steam hangs in the air, thick and fragrant with bay leaves and thyme, meant to soothe aching joints and disguise the human soup simmering below. You strip down without ceremony. Modesty doesn't exist here. After a week in the Ludus, no one cares who's missing teeth or who has a brand on their shoulder. You step into the water, wincing as the heat bites into your scrapes and blisters. Then, slowly, your body starts to relax. This isn't rest. Not really. But it's the closest thing you'll get to it. Around you, other gladiators soak, wash, and argue quietly. There's a rhythm to it. Complaints about the training staff, debates over weapon techniques, grumbles about ration quality. Sometimes, men even try to one-up each other with injury stories. One claims to have taken a gladius to the shoulder and finished the match. Another insists he once kept fighting with a broken ankle. Most of it is exaggeration, of course. But exaggeration is part of being a gladiator. You're not just surviving, you're curating a legend. Historians still argue whether gladiators had real camaraderie, or if it was just convenience in captivity. In truth, it's both. You fought beside these men, bled next to them, eaten from the same pot. There are friendships here, yes, but always shadowed by rivalry. Any one of them might face you in the arena someday. And there, one of you might not walk out. Even in the bath, that tension simmers. It's subtle, but always present. A glance held too long. A bruise that's still a little too fresh. No one lets their guard fully down. A few veterans dominate the space. Men who've survived enough matches to earn something resembling status. One of them, nicknamed Pollex because he's missing a thumb, lounges on the edge of the pool, explaining the finer points of crowd psychology. They don't care if you win, he says. They care if you win well. Or die loudly. Either way, give them a story. You don't ask questions. You just listen. After the bath, you move to the oiling room. It's not glamorous. Just another stone chamber with a few shelves of olive oil jars and a bucket of strigils, curved scrapers used to clean off sweat and dirt. You pour a bit into your hand and begin rubbing it into your shoulders. The oil soothes the skin, masks the scent of the bathhouse, and gives your muscles a faint sheen, useful for training, but even more important for public appearances. That's right. Looks matter here. Part of your job, strange as it sounds, is being seen. You're a product of training, yes, but also of grooming. Patrons might visit. Spectators will whisper. Rumors about strength, style, and scars can make or break a fighter's value. A single well-timed duel could change your whole career, if you look the part. The oiling is rough, practical. The strigil scrapes away grime and skin flakes, leaving behind a strange, artificial smoothness. You glance at yourself in a polished brass mirror, mounted just high enough to catch your reflection in full. The face looking back is someone you almost recognize. Tired eyes, a healing cut along the cheekbone, sun-darkened skin pulled taut over lean muscle. Not beautiful. Not yet monstrous. Something in between. Outside, the heat continues to build. The air hangs heavy over the Ludus, muffling sound, stretching time. You pull on a clean tunic and move toward the common area, an open courtyard where most of the men gather during the brief midday rest. You sit on a bench beneath a fig tree. Its shadow is meager, but enough. The courtyard hums with idle activity. One man carves a figure into a stick with a knife. Another naps, mouth open and snoring against the wall. A pair of recruits roll dice in the dirt, betting with chicken bones and crusts of bread. Somewhere, a lute plays a few lazy notes, off-key but oddly calming. This is the part of the day that feels most like a life. If you close your eyes and tune out the background, you can almost imagine you're a free man. Almost. Then you remember where you are. The ludus isn't a school, it's a farm. Your livestock being fattened, trained, and prepared for market. And that market just happens to be a blood-soaked stage beneath thousands of howling spectators. Still, for a few precious minutes, you let the sun touch your face, and you allow yourself the smallest indulgence. A deep breath that isn't punctuated by a fist, a shout, or the clang of weapons. It won't last. Nothing ever does here. But in the world of a gladiator, even this moment, a sunbeam, a warm belly, a clean tunic, is a kind of victory. The trainers return without warning. 1 minute, the courtyard hums with sleepy restfulness, and the next, orders are barked across the stones, slicing through the warm stillness. Men scramble to their feet, dice forgotten, naps cut short, the sounds of sandals scuffing and shields clattering replacing the lazy lull of midday. This session won't be about movement. It's about mastery, of weapons, of form, of your place in the pecking order. The trainers divide the group by weapon class. You head toward the rack where your assigned gear waits. A wooden replica gladius again, but this time with a heavier weight at the hilt, designed to push your grip endurance. Your shield is the standard scutum, a curved rectangle nearly the size of your torso, rimmed in iron and riddled with chips and old bloodstains. Nearby, others collect gear unfamiliar to you, long spears, hooked daggers, even a trident. One man drags out a Crupularius set, a full metal suit so heavy he can barely bend his knees. You watch as the retiarii, the net fighters, begin their session across the yard. Bare-shouldered and nimble, they swirl their nets with hypnotic precision, weaving figure eights in the air before letting them drop with a practiced thud. The tridents follow next, slow but deadly thrusts that pierce invisible torsos with theatrical flair. You'd never trade places with a retiarius. They move like dancers, sure, but their protection is nearly non-existent. One bad turn, one mistimed step, and they're done. It's all speed and showmanship. You respect them, from a distance. Your class, the Murmillos, fights heavier, slower, more controlled. Think of it like armored boxing with swords. Your focus today is defense. Shield control. You form up in lines and take turns practicing the same core movements. Absorb a blow, shift your stance, push back. Over and over. The heat is unbearable now. The sun has crawled higher, settling overhead like a punishing overseer. Sweat drips down your back, tracing the bruises from earlier. Your grip is slippery despite the rough leather wraps on the hilt. Every breath feels like drawing in dry air through a damp rag. You rotate stations. This one has a wooden post the height of a man's chest, meant to simulate body strikes. You slam your blade into it again and again. You're told to watch your footwork. Tighten your elbow. Broaden your stance. More weight behind the thrust. You don't complain. No one does. That's the rule. Even if your muscles are burning and your shoulder is trembling from fatigue. Pain means you're doing it right. Pain means you're still training, not resting in the medicus chamber. Or worse, in the spoliarium, the room where they strip the bodies of the dead. There's a shift in tone when the weapons master arrives. He's not like the other trainers. He's older, for one, and more precise. He doesn't yell. He observes, then speaks in clipped sentences that cut deeper than any insult. When he walks the line, even the loudest men go silent. You step forward when he gestures. Your turn. A solo form demonstration. You perform the prescribed series: shield lift, sidestep, slash, counter. He watches, impassive. Then, a slow nod. Approval, not often given. He moves on. The heat presses harder. Dust clings to your arms and legs like a second skin. Around you, others continue their drills. One man drops his sword, then his knees. He's helped away by 2 assistants. The training continues without pause. You step into another round. The gear itself begins to feel like a living thing. The shield breathes with you. The sword hums in your hand, its weight a steady whisper in your forearm. You've stopped thinking about your body. You just move. That's the point. When the moment comes in the arena, there won't be time to think. Only time to act. One wall of the yard has painted diagrams, faded frescoes of fighting stances, weapon angles, foot positions. They're stylized, almost elegant, like choreography notes for a dance. You glance at them now and then, half for guidance, half for hope that this brutal cycle has some kind of logic behind it. Historians still argue whether these techniques were universally enforced or varied from ludus to ludus, but here they are law. As the drill session ends, a strange ritual begins: inspection. A trainer walks through the group and begins naming weapons, one by one, explaining each tool's origin, strengths, and unique weaknesses. It's not for curiosity, it's for conditioning. You're expected to know not just your weapon, but everyone else's. Because in the arena, understanding how your opponent moves is sometimes more valuable than brute strength. You learn that the sicker, that wicked, curved blade the Thracians use, is ideal for slipping behind shields, designed to target exposed ribs or kidneys. The trident, though slow, creates reach and can trap swords between its prongs. The aster, the long thrusting spear, is perfect for single strikes but terrible in close quarters. And the gladius, your companion, is best when you're toe-to-toe and angry. Some men take notes, not with ink, but in the way they stare, memorizing blade lengths, guard habits, shield size. It's a quiet form of survival. Know thy enemy, even if he's your bunkmate. The day continues in this rhythm. Sweat, strike, rest, repeat. 1 hour blends into the next. You lose track of time. The sun moves slightly, but nothing else changes. Until a horn blows. 3 short bursts. That means someone important is visiting. And when someone important visits the ludus, it usually means one of you is about to be offered up for demonstration. The courtyard stills instantly at the sound of the horn. The usual shuffling stops. Voices fall quiet. Even the trainers go rigid, like statues carved from sun-baked flesh. Everyone knows what that horn means. A patron has arrived. A man of wealth, power, and the dangerous hobby of collecting gladiators like game pieces. You brush dust from your tunic as inconspicuously as possible. Not that it matters. You still look like a walking bruise. But appearances, like everything else here, are part of the performance. The gates swing open with a slow groan. Not the arena gates. The other ones. The polished ones, rarely used, that lead from the ludus into the outer courtyards where the wealthy occasionally mingle with their investments. 2 servants enter first, both clean-robed and shuffling respectfully. Behind them walks the man himself, tall, draped in layers of purple-edged linen, dripping with rings. His sandals look softer than your bedding. A golden chain loops around his neck like a smug little trophy. Your Lannister trails behind, gesturing with smooth palms and wearing that special expression reserved for men with coin, half host, half hunter. He's already gauging the patron's mood. Is he here to purchase? Sponsor? Scout for the next games? Whatever the reason, the tension in the yard tightens like a sling. The men around you try to look casual, but everyone subtly adjusts their posture. You stand straighter. Suck in your bruised stomach. Turn your better side forward. It's absurd, in a way. Your property. Technically. A trained killer. And yet, here you are, hoping a man who smells like myrrh will approve of how you hold your sword. The patron makes a slow circuit, observing the assembled fighters like he's picking out fruit. His eyes linger on certain physiques, tall, broad-shouldered, scarred but symmetrical. A few names are murmured between him and the Lannister. You catch a word here and there, formidable, quick, needs discipline. Then he gestures vaguely toward a few of you, including you. Demonstration. Of course. The chosen are ushered into a side yard. It's smaller, enclosed, but still packed dirt and framed by shaded benches. The patron settles in with a parasol held above his head, flanked by attendants who whisper and occasionally fan him. He doesn't speak. Just waits. You're paired with a man named Cassian. Older than you, thicker around the chest, known for being stubborn in the ring. Not showy, not especially fast, but dependable. A stone wall in human form. You're handed wooden practice gear again, but it's been polished for the occasion. Someone even rubs a layer of oil across your arms and shoulders before you enter the ring. You shine in the sun, whether you like it or not. This isn't a fight to win. It's a fight to impress. The trainer barks, and the match begins. Cassian comes at you hard, shield high, short blade jabbing low. You move instinctively now, there's no time to think. Your shield catches the strike, your heel pivots, and you swing around to counter with a thudding crack against his hip. He grunts, but recovers, spinning his shield into your arm. Pain blooms. You adjust. Step back. Lunge. It goes on for minutes. Measured blows, exaggerated footwork, carefully controlled intensity. No blood, but plenty of thuds and grunts. You land a few good hits. You let him land some too. That's the trick. You want the match to look real, but not end too soon. The patron wants to see potential, not results. The crowd, what little of it there is, seems pleased. The patron leans forward once, lips curled in what might almost be interest. He doesn't clap. Patrons don't clap. But he nods at the end, once, sharply. That's enough. The trainer calls it, and you lower your shield, breathing hard. Cassian slaps your shoulder once as you leave the ring. It's not affection. It's a reminder. Today wasn't about victory. It was about theater. As you file out, you pass the line of waiting fighters. Some look relieved not to have been chosen. Others, envious. Attention from a sponsor can mean gifts, praise, even promotion to editorial matches. Those rare, prestigious bouts performed at festivals or imperial games. It's both a reward and a gamble. High visibility, higher risk. You return to the common area, now partially cleared, and grab a skin of water. It's lukewarm, but you drink deeply. The oil on your arms is sticky now, attracting dust in uneven patches. Your legs are trembling, not from fear or adrenaline, just exhaustion. You sit in the shade again, not caring this time whether the patron sees you looking drained. He's moved on to tour the quarters, inspect the kitchens, or discuss purchase prices over wine. His visit, short as it is, lingers in the air. The tension doesn't leave with him. After all, he might come back. And next time, he might have a name in mind. Yours. Maybe. Maybe not. Historians still argue over how much autonomy gladiators had in these dealings. Whether they could appeal to patrons, influence outcomes, negotiate favors. The truth is likely somewhere in between. But in your world, perception is power. If a man like that remembers you, even for a moment, your life might change. Or end. Either's possible. As the sun begins its slow descent, A strange quiet settles over the ludus. Not peace. Not yet. But a kind of pause. A moment to let your pulse settle. You roll your shoulders. Test your ribs. No fresh bruises from the bout, surprisingly. But the day isn't over. A voice calls out near the hallway. You're needed in the atrium. The next lesson is starting. And it's not about fighting. It's about dying well. The atrium is one of the quieter parts of the ludus, a shaded space with marble columns and a dusty mosaic floor depicting some long-forgotten battle. You rarely come here. It's reserved for special lessons. The kind where bruises don't come from fists or blades, but from truths you're not sure you want to hear. You join a small group already assembled. Veterans mostly. A few of the younger ones. 2. Men with potential. Or at least the right look. You sit on the edge of a stone bench, rubbing the salt crust from your neck. Your skin itches under the thin linen tunic. A dull throb pulses behind your eyes. Then he arrives, the instructor. Not a fighter. A producer, of sorts. He doesn't wear armor. No scars. Instead, he's dressed like a man from a theater. Simple robes, dark beard oiled and neatly trimmed. He carries a wooden staff, not for discipline, but for gesturing. His voice is soft, with that theatrical cadence that somehow makes every word sound important. You suspect he once worked in a proper theater, maybe even wrote plays. His role here? To teach you how to die. Not really, of course. You've already learned how to do that part. The dying is easy. It's the performance that matters. You must fall like a hero, he begins, pacing slowly in front of you all. Even in death, you are speaking to the crowd. He raises his staff and mimes a stagger, a twist, a final glance to the heavens. A slow collapse. Dust curling around the body. Arms spread like a martyred saint. Then he looks at you. That's worth cheering. A few men chuckle quietly. But no one doubts the truth behind the theatrics. Your death is your exit line. Your legacy. The wrong kind of fall, a slip, a whimper, a twitch, could ruin the entire spectacle. Worse, it could get you denied mercy. The editor of the games might be swayed by the crowd, yes, but only if the crowd feels moved. Historians still argue whether all gladiatorial deaths were decided by gesture, or if some were predetermined by contract. What's agreed on is this: dying well was often your last, and only, chance at dignity. You practice it. Literally. Each man is called forward to rehearse his death. Cassian performs his collapse like a man lowering himself into a warm bath. Controlled. Poised. Believable. The instructor nods. Another man stumbles dramatically, then flops like a sack of wet laundry. The group groans. The instructor sighs. Do it again. When your turn comes, your body aches from the earlier demonstration match. But you rise, step forward, and try to forget you're still slick with sweat. He tells you to imagine it. You've been stabbed in the side. Not instantly fatal, but deep. You're losing blood. The crowd's roaring. The opponent raises his blade. The final strike comes. You must fall as though the soul is escaping, not the breath. So you do. You twist. Stagger 2 steps. Drop your shield. Kneel, then collapse slowly, arms spread, eyes open to the sky. You lie still. Let the dust settle around your cheek. You don't move. There's a beat of silence. Then, not bad, the instructor mutters. Praise. In his world. You return to your bench and watch the others. Some are naturals. Others trip over their own feet trying to crumple artfully. But everyone tries. Because dying is inevitable. Doing it well? That's the trick. You learn the gestures of mercy. 2 fingers raised if the editor wants the defeated spared. A turned thumb if not. You're taught how to watch the editor while pretending not to. How to pause just long enough to see the signal. How to die instantly, or plead convincingly, depending on the answer. A strange lesson, this one. More intimate than sword work. More nerve-wracking than the sand pit. Because here, you're not practicing violence. You're practicing vulnerability, suffering, helplessness, and making it look noble. Eventually, the lesson ends. The instructor dismisses you with a wave, already turning his attention to a group of fresh recruits who shuffle into the atrium looking even more confused than you did. You stand. Stretch. Your knees pop loudly enough to make someone wince. You feel heavier somehow, not from pain, but from the weight of everything you're learning. Fighting is one thing, but becoming something for the crowd to believe in? That's its own kind of battle. Outside, the light has softened. Late afternoon now. Shadows are long and golden. The dust in the air has turned orange, glowing faintly as it drifts. You pass a few men gathered near the walls, whispering about upcoming matches. One of them might be you. Or maybe not. Sometimes you know weeks in advance. Other times, you're told the night before. Or the hour before. No one knows who chooses the schedule. That's above your pay grade. You pass the kitchens again, smoke curling out of a chimney, someone cursing about burned lentils. A slave hauls a sack of onions across the courtyard, eyes watering. A pair of dogs nap in the shade beneath the supply cart, undisturbed. You pause at the edge of the courtyard. Take a deep breath. The soreness is settling deeper now. Not sharp, just persistent, like your whole body's wrapped in tight fabric. You wonder, idly, how many of your rehearsed deaths will ever be used. And how many of them will be real. By the time dinner approaches, the ludus has slowed to a dull crawl. Even the insects seem to move more sluggishly, thick with the day's heat. You sit on a low step just outside the refectory hall, legs stretched out, waiting for the food line to form. This pause between duties feels like a breath held between waves. It's not long, but it's yours. The other men gather gradually, some limping, some grumbling, one still wrapped in a towel from the bathhouse because he lost a bet and had to skip changing. Laughter ripples through the crowd. The kind that comes not from joy, but from surviving long enough to see the joke. The refectory itself is plain. Stone walls, no decoration, just a long central table and a few benches arranged along its sides. The Lannister doesn't eat with you. Neither do the trainers. This space is for the fighters only. It's where ranks dissolve a little. Where even the most favored can share stale bread with the newest recruit. The food tonight is better than usual. Stewed lentils with onions, a slice of smoked fish, a handful of grapes, and barley bread, still warm from the hearth. One man mutters that someone important must be visiting tomorrow. Meals like this don't appear from nowhere. You sit elbow to elbow, shoulders brushing, bowls steaming in the golden glow of torchlight. You eat in silence for a while, the kind that speaks volumes. No one rushes. There's nowhere to be, not yet. The only thing on the horizon now is sleep, or whatever passes for it in the communal dormitories. One man at the far end of the bench starts humming a tune. Another joins in, drumming his fingers against the table in a lazy rhythm. It's not music, exactly, but it fills the air better than words could. You let it wash over you as you chew another bite of bread and realize, with mild surprise, that your hands have stopped shaking. The conversation drifts back in, soft and scattered. Someone tells a story about a bout in Hispania where a retiarius tripped on his own net and accidentally stabbed himself. Another describes an arena in Capua built so poorly that the crowd collapsed the stands during a match. True. Maybe. But that's not the point. Stories are currency here. Little piles of hope, absurdity, and defiance passed from man to man. Historians still argue about what bonds gladiators shared, whether they lived like brothers or like competitors waiting to outlast each other. But sitting here, full belly and bruised ribs, you can say this for certain: when the sun goes down and the fighting stops, you all become part of the same strange, scarred fraternity, bound not by trust, but by the knowledge that no one else truly understands what your days are like. After dinner, there's a brief check-in from the librarius, the man responsible for records. He reads off a list of names, confirming who fought today, who trained, who reported to the infirmary. The roll call is short. Every name sounds heavier now. You recognize most. You notice a few missing. No one says anything about that. You're free to move about the courtyard for a little while longer. Some men return to the baths to soak again, others tend to their weapons, even if the blades are practice wood or dulled steel. A few draw diagrams in the dirt, sketching tactics, debating angles. It's strange, in a way, how much thinking goes into something that looks so primal to the crowd. You find yourself at the edge of the yard again, near the low wall where herbs grow in shallow stone beds: mint, basil, a few strands of wild fennel. The scent is faint but calming. You pluck a leaf and crush it between your fingers. For a moment, it masks the smell of sweat and leather and iron. It almost smells like someone's kitchen, someone's home. A trainer walks past and tosses you a rag. "Bandage that hand," he says without slowing. You'd forgotten the scrape. Your knuckles are raw again, cracked open just slightly where you gripped the gladius too hard earlier. You nod, wrap it with the cloth, and press the leaf inside for good measure. It stings, but not badly. Above you, the sky is changing color. Deep purple along the edges, turning navy. The stars are just starting to emerge, faint and blinking. Rome's skies are rarely truly dark, but they carry a kind of smoky beauty, the haze of oil lamps and hearth fires drifting up from the city beyond the ludus walls. Someone lights a torch near the dormitory entrance. It flickers, casting long shadows across the courtyard. That's the signal. Time to turn in. You join the slow trickle of men heading toward the barracks. The building is long and narrow, its walls thick to hold in heat during winter and trap cool air in the summer, though tonight, it's still stifling. Inside, the beds are little more than wooden frames with straw-stuffed mats. You find yours, same as always, third from the far end, beneath a high slit of a window. You sit for a moment, stripping off your sandals, rubbing the grit from your feet. Every part of your body hums with exhaustion. Not sharp pain. Not yet. That comes tomorrow. This is just the kind of fatigue that seeps into your bones and makes you wonder if you'll wake up sore or simply different. Before lying down, you check your gear, out of habit more than need. Your training sword, oiled and propped against the wall. Your tunic, hung neatly. Your belt, coiled on a peg. There's something calming about it. A small ritual in a life of unpredictability. You lie back, the straw crackling beneath you, and stare at the wooden beams above. They're old, carved with names and dates, half-erased tally marks. Some go back decades. A few men say one of the beams belonged to a gladiator who won his freedom, rudies and all. Maybe. But like most stories in the ludus, truth isn't the currency. Belief is. And tonight, you believe enough to let your eyes close. Tomorrow might bring more drills. Another demonstration. Or your name on the roster. You don't know yet. But right now, in this moment, you're still here. And in this place, that's everything. The morning horn splits the silence like a blade through cloth. You're already half awake when it sounds. It's not sleep, really, not deep, restful sleep, but the twitchy, half-conscious drift of someone who doesn't know whether they'll be summoned to fight or scrub latrines. You roll out of bed stiffly, every joint registering protest. Your legs feel like cured leather, strong, but unforgiving. Outside, the sky hasn't lightened much. Dawn in Rome is a soft grey blur, smudged with the distant flicker of street fires and the cries of vendors setting up in the markets beyond the ludus walls. You won't see those markets. Not unless you're in a parade, or a cage, or a coffin. The dormitory floor is cold. You stand and stretch, spine cracking, shoulders rolling like creaking doors. A few men mutter greetings. One scratches at a bandaged arm. Another already has his sandals on, eager or anxious. You can't tell which. The daily routine begins, same as always. Wash, gear check, morning meal. Today's breakfast is modest. Millet porridge, rough bread, and a date or two, if you're lucky. You eat mechanically. It's not about taste. It's fuel. Some men eat standing, some sitting on the steps. One tries to chew with a missing molar and keeps flinching between bites. Then comes the posting. A wooden board stands at the courtyard's edge, where one of the scribes has pinned a small wax tablet. It lists 3 names. Yours is one of them. There's no fanfare, no warning, just a tap on the shoulder, and suddenly you're in a different category. Not a trainee, not just a performer. You're on the roster. A match is scheduled. You don't know where yet. Could be a private villa, a mid-level amphitheater in a nearby town, or the big one, the Colosseum itself. It depends on which editor needs blood this week. Regardless, your day just changed. Training will be different now. You're pulled aside by one of the senior trainers, a man who once fought under the name Lupinus, the wolf. He has a crushed nose and one eye that never quite looks at you. But he's sharp. Too sharp. He sizes you up, then says, "We prepare differently now." He means it. Gone are the endless drills and mass formations. This is focused, targeted prep. You're taken to a side yard and made to rehearse one-on-one sparring with a specific partner. It's not Gaius or Cassian this time, but a younger man with fast feet and a sharp elbow. He fights like a dart, light, fast, hard to track. You're told he matches the profile of your likely opponent. That's a thing here. The Lannister doesn't just train you. He studies the roster, tracks other schools, and sometimes, somehow, gets word of who you'll face. The best Ludi operate like espionage rings, trading intel and counter-tactics. You're being prepared for someone, and while they won't say who, they clearly expect it to be a secutor, or maybe even a provocator, someone aggressive, armored, and theatrical. So that's who you train against. You work footwork, defensive circles, shield feints. The trainer corrects your stance. Again and again. You're too open. Keep your shield low. Don't show fatigue. It's that last one that's hardest. You're already tired, and the match is days away. But this part matters most, your performance under pressure. Not just how you fight, but how you look doing it. Historians still argue whether these matches were always to the death. Most agree, not always. But they were dangerous. Wounds could get infected. Limbs shattered. A lucky hit could kill just as fast as a sword tip. Your job, then, is to make sure luck isn't the deciding factor. The prep continues through mid-morning. You cycle through techniques, repeat them until your muscles twitch automatically. They're shaping you for something precise, something marketable. At one point, a man from the administrative office comes to observe. He's dressed plainly, but carries a wax tablet and writes down notes with quick, scratchy strokes. He doesn't speak, just watches, then walks away. You wonder if he's scouting for someone higher up. Maybe your opponent has spies, too. By midday, you're pulled from training and told to rest. Not because they're kind. Because a tired fighter doesn't sell tickets. You're taken to a shaded alcove near the infirmary, handed a cold compress for your wrist, and told to lie flat. The stone bench is hard, but the quiet is welcome. The nurse is an older woman with a scar across her jaw, likely not from stitching linen. She applies a salve to your forearm without a word. It stings, then cools. As you rest, 2 men arrive on a stretcher, both injured during morning drills. One has a dislocated shoulder. The other's nose is clearly broken. You've seen him fight before, he's good. But if he doesn't recover in time, someone else will take his spot. No guarantees. Not for anyone. Your mind drifts as you lie there. You picture the arena, dust rising with every footfall, the crowd a blur of faces and noise, the heat of the sun baking your skin through the helmet. You try to remember everything you've been taught. The tricks, the lies, the style. And somewhere in that haze, you ask the question no one likes to voice out loud. Will I survive this one? No answer. Just the sound of the nurse tightening a linen wrap around your wrist. Later, you're cleared to return to your quarters. As you walk, a few other men glance your way. A nod here. A look there. No words. But you can feel it. You've moved a rung up the ladder. You're not just in training now. You're in the game. And the clock is ticking. That night, sleep comes slowly. Not because you're afraid. Not exactly. It's the kind of sleep-delaying restlessness that comes when something is looming. Something large and unmovable and unknowable. A match. A performance. A brush with death that's been penciled onto a wax tablet somewhere in a back room by a man who's probably never lifted a sword in his life. You lie on your straw mattress, staring up at the slats of the ceiling, listening to the slow rhythm of breath from the other men. Some snore. Others twitch. One near the door mutters in his sleep, something about figs and fire, neither of which makes much sense. But it fills the space, and the silence never feels quite empty. Morning comes quickly, and with it, new orders. You're to be fitted today. Not with armor, not yet. With your persona. You've heard whispers of this process before. Gladiators aren't just fighters. They're characters. Archetypes. Symbols. The crowd doesn't cheer for your name, they cheer for what you represent. So you're brought to a long room lined with weapon racks, crates of costumes, and polished bronze mirrors. A wardrobe room, essentially. One wall is plastered with wax slates showing match pairings, favored rivalries, and symbolic traits. There's a whole system here. You're not just a man. You're a walking myth. The man in charge of this process is named Florus. Not a fighter. Not a trainer. A stylist, if you can believe it. Balding, fastidious, and opinionated, he flutters around you like a tailor with an unruly client. Good shoulders. Angular jawline. Not classically handsome, but compelling. You look like someone who could cause problems in a Greek tragedy. You say nothing. No one ever talks much in here. You're a murmillo by training, he continues. But we can work with that. Helmet with a fish crest, broad shield, heavy strikes, perfect foil for a Thrax or Retiarius. He pauses, then adds with a little smirk, if you last more than 10 seconds, of course. He rummages through a chest and pulls out a set of greaves, decorative, not functional. One is etched with a Gorgon's face. The other, a roaring lion. These are for flair, he explains. The audience loves symbolism. You represent strength. Stoicism. A wall of willpower. He pulls out a belt next, polished bronze with a series of small pendants. Thunderbolts, laurels, and one shaped like a dagger piercing a heart. Don't read into that one, he says, buckling it onto your tunic. The fitting continues. You're handed a different shield, this one painted crimson with a black border. Easier for the crowd to spot from the stands. Your gladius is polished, its wooden training twin replaced with the real thing. Short, balanced, slightly heavier at the hilt. The kind of weapon meant to kill up close and look good doing it. Historians still argue about how much individuality gladiators were allowed. Were personas chosen for them, or did they help shape them? The truth seems to be both. You don't choose the game, but you learn to play your role well. Or not at all. By the end of the session, you've been transformed, not into something else, but into a sharper version of yourself. Distilled. The man you were has been folded into a symbol. An idea that fits neatly onto a poster, a chant, a shouted name. You are no longer just a body. You are the wall. The storm. The last line. Whatever name they assign you, it will stick. You leave the fitting with a bundle of gear and a hollow kind of pride. You look good. Intimidating. Like someone who wins. And maybe that will matter. In the courtyard, you spot a trainer adjusting the sand pit. This is where final rehearsals happen. Not drills, not sparring, choreography. You're expected to rehearse potential moves, entrances, stances, victory poses. It feels ridiculous, until you realize this is the most crucial performance of your life. When you walk into that arena, the crowd will decide in seconds whether to love you or forget you. Your first moments will shape the rest. You spend the next hour practicing an entrance. Not flashy. Grounded. Confident. You grip the shield tightly, pace out your steps, plant your heels hard, raise your blade, and give a nod to the invisible editor's box. Again. And again. And again. Later, you're taken aside by the match reader, a man who knows the full bout lineup for the coming games. He's the one who tells you the name of your opponent. You've never heard it before, but he has a record. 3 matches, 3 wins. Thrake's style. Curved blade. Fast feet. Crowd favorite. You nod once and say nothing. It's not bravado. Just the only response you can give. As the day fades into evening, the trainers ease up. No more drills. No more shouting. Now, it's quiet preparation. You eat well, better than usual. Meat. Dates. Bread soaked in oil. They want you strong for tomorrow. Tomorrow. Your match is tomorrow. There's no fear yet. Not really. What you feel is focus. Narrow, hard-edged, all-consuming. Like a blade being honed against the whetstone of inevitability. As you lie down that night, your gear cleaned and ready by your side, you stare at the ceiling again. You picture the arena. You picture your opponent. You picture the crowd rising to their feet. And for the first time, you picture yourself winning. Just once. And it feels possible. The morning of the match is colder than expected. Not by much, but enough that your skin tightens when you rise. Enough to make you wish you had another layer between yourself and the chill stone floor. You dress in silence, buckling your tunic and adjusting your belt, checking the wraps on your wrist twice even though you know they're fine. You're escorted not to the training yard, but to the holding chamber, a large, echoing space tucked deep beneath the ludus. This is where combatants are readied before transport. Where the air smells like damp earth and old oil, and the walls are carved with names, etched by men who wanted to leave something behind, just in case. The room is already busy. You're not the only one fighting today. A few dozen others are being loaded into carts or reviewed by officials. Most are quiet, heads down. Some whisper prayers. One is arguing about his armor fit, insisting the chest plate is meant for someone wider. No one bothers to correct him. You sit on a bench near the wall and wait. Your gear is checked by a Lararius, a servant tasked with making sure nothing is tampered with. He eyes your gladius, taps the shield's rim, mutters about balance, then moves on. Everything is carefully regulated. No blades too sharp. No armor too thick. The game has rules, even if death is still part of the scoring. Soon enough, your transport arrives, a heavy, iron-barred cart drawn by a pair of plodding oxen. You and 3 others are loaded inside. The bars clank shut, and the city begins to pass by. Rome in the morning is alive in ways the Ludus never is. The streets are lined with vendors shouting prices, children weaving between legs, priests waving incense. The cart rattles over cobbles as the scent of fish, bread, sweat, and animal dung assaults your nose. A dog barks. Someone throws a rotten apple core at the cage. And still, it's oddly beautiful. You're part of the pageantry now. A moving piece of the machine. Some people cheer when they see you pass. Some jeer. One woman makes a hand sign for protection. You're not sure if it's for her or for you. Historians still debate how the average Roman truly felt about gladiators. Were you heroes? Entertainers? Slaves? The answer, frustratingly, is often all 3. You inspire awe and pity in equal measure. And for a few hours each week, you matter more than senators. The cart takes a turn, and suddenly you see it. The arena. It isn't the Colosseum, but it's close. A secondary amphitheater, massive in its own right. Enough to hold thousands. The outer walls are plastered and painted, cracked from sun and time but still imposing. Decorative reliefs show past champions frozen in stone mid-swing. Statues of gods, Mars, Apollo, Nemesis, line the approach. You're brought around the side, unloaded beneath the stands, and herded into the underbelly, the staging tunnels. This is where the noise begins. You can hear it above, feet shuffling into seats, voices climbing over each other. Distant drums begin to beat. Someone above calls for wine. A vendor bellows about boiled chickpeas. The atmosphere swells like a storm about to break. You're led to your staging cell, a small chamber with a barred gate that opens directly into the arena. It's dimly lit, barely wide enough to pace. But this is where you'll wait until your name is called. Or rather, your title. A handler approaches. He's young, reed-thin, wearing a tunic marked with the editor's insignia. He checks a tablet, then looks you over. "You're up 4th, he says. "Short match. No animal fights before. You'll have a clean floor." You nod. It's the best outcome you could have hoped for. No blood-soaked sand to slip on. No howling dogs or confused ostriches panicking mid-bout. You settle onto a bench. Breathe. The first fight begins. You don't see it. You feel it. The gate opens in the cell next to yours. The crowd explodes. Footsteps rush out. Moments later, there's cheering, then a sharp collective gasp. Someone screams. Then silence. Gate closes. One down. Second match. A longer one. The audience grows more engaged. You hear a name chanted rhythmically. Maybe the victor is popular. Or dramatic. Or just lucky. Third match. It ends quickly. There's laughter, then booing. Someone didn't put on a good show. Now it's your turn. The handler returns. You're up. You rise. Your heart thumps hard, but slow. Not panic, just gravity. Your helmet is handed to you. You slide it on. Everything becomes narrower, muffled, centered. You lift your shield, feel the familiar weight of the gladius in your palm. The gate creaks. Light spills in. A wall of noise slams into you, vast and unrelenting. The sun is blinding at first, but you move forward on instinct. Out. Into the arena. The sand crunches beneath your feet. You step to the marked position at center, shield high. Across from you, your opponent emerges. You don't know his name, but you recognize the style. Thrakes. Curved blade. High helmet. Small shield. Light armor. Fast. He twirls the sickle once, dramatically, then taps his chest with the flat of the blade. The crowd responds. You just raise your shield. You hear your name shouted, or rather, your title. The wall, someone yells. It catches. A few more voices join in. It's enough. The editor rises in the imperial box. He gives a small, almost lazy wave. The signal. Begin. You move. No more drills. No more rehearsals. Now it's real. And everyone is watching. The first strike comes fast. He darts to your right, trying to catch your exposed side. You pivot smoothly, bringing the shield across just in time. The curved blade scrapes against bronze with a screech that cuts through the roar of the crowd. Dust kicks up around your feet. Your opponent dances back, light on his heels. You stay grounded. That's the advantage of your style. You're not built for speed. You're built to hold, absorb, counter. You keep your stance low and wide, like a stone waiting for the tide. You've practiced this hundreds of times. Only now, the stakes are steel, not wood. The Thrakes feints again. Left, right, left, then lunges low. You're ready. Your shield dips, absorbs the blow, and your gladius snaps out toward his midsection. A clean strike, but his reflexes are faster. He twists away, and the blade grazes only cloth. Still, it's a start. The crowd erupts. They love momentum, even if it's brief. He circles. You circle. The two of you become a wheel turning slowly over blood-stained sand. You watch his feet, the way his right heel always lifts just before he lunges. You start counting breaths. Not his, yours. 3 in, 1 out. Steady. Focused. He rushes again. This time you meet him head-on. Your shield smashes into his with a crack, and the sound echoes like a bone snapping. You follow through with your shoulder, driving forward. He stumbles. You strike. Your gladius slices along his forearm. Not deep, but enough to paint the sand. A cheer rises. Blood always wakes them up. You step back, shield high again. He eyes you from behind the visor, panting. There's a flicker of something in his posture. Respect, maybe. Or annoyance. He circles wider now, looking for a better angle. You let him. You keep the center. Historians still argue whether gladiator fights were entirely spontaneous or partially choreographed. Some sources suggest key sequences were planned, openings, reversals, dramatic moments. But in the end, no script survives the first cut. The blade writes its own lines. Your opponent feints again, but you're already moving. You close the distance suddenly, your gladius stabbing forward, not at his body, but at his shield. It knocks it wide, just enough to open his flank. You don't hesitate. Another strike, this one cleaner. It catches flesh, and he howls. The crowd surges with sound. He's wounded. Now comes the choice. You could press. End it quickly. But this is more than survival, it's performance. So you step back. Let him recover. Let them see you. Your chest rises and falls in slow rhythm. The sun glints off your helmet. Blood drips from your opponent's side and stains the sand in abstract curls. You hold your stance. Still. Unyielding. That's your persona. You're not the killer. You're the test. The Thrakes charges again, angry now. Desperate. It's always this way. Wounded pride is more dangerous than sharpened steel. He swings wildly, once, twice, blade arcing in a bright blur. You parry both, stepping aside, letting him burn out like a torch in wind. And then, Your moment. A clean opening. His side. Again. Your gladius punches forward. He crumples. Not dead. But close. He falls to his knees, arm hanging limp, weapon dropped. And now, the pause. The part you've practiced. You don't move. You don't finish it. You turn, slowly, to the editor's box. The crowd quiets, sensing what's coming. You raise your blade. Not high. Just enough. A question. Mercy. The editor watches, fingers steepled. The arena holds its breath. Then, his hand rises. 2 fingers extended. Mercy granted. The crowd responds with polite applause, not the thunder of death, but the rhythm of relief. You nod once. Turn back. Your opponent lowers his head in acknowledgement. 2 attendants rush in to drag him from the field. You step to the center of the arena, arms at your sides, shield lowered. The sun is hotter now. Sweat burns in your cuts. But your chest feels strangely light. You won. More importantly, you performed. The announcer's voice rings out, naming your title. The wall, he calls. He stands unshaken. You don't smile. That would break character. You simply raise your blade, once, cleanly, then turn and walk back toward the gate. As you pass the entry tunnel, you glimpse the next pair of fighters waiting in shadow, nervous, quiet, gripping weapons too tightly. You want to say something, but you don't. Everyone walks their own path into the arena. Inside the holding chambers, handlers greet you with quick nods and towels. One pours water over your arms. Another removes your helmet. The moment you take it off, the noise of the crowd seems to dull. Like the world shrinks back to its normal size. You sit on a bench, gladius resting across your knees, and finally, let out a breath you didn't realize you've been holding since dawn. Someone brings wine. Not the cheap vinegar kind, either. This is sweeter. A reward. You sip. It tastes like metal and victory. The scribe appears again, tablet in hand. Recorded, he mutters. Victory. No fatalities. Spectator rating. High. You're marked for rematch potential. You nod. There it is. Your next match already beginning to take shape in someone's ledger. But for now, you're alive. In one piece. Your name, well, your title, has weight now. The crowd knows your silhouette. They've chanted for you. You've entered the bloodstream of Roman spectacle. The arena is behind you. But its dust still clings to your skin. Its sound still echoes in your ears. And as strange as it is, part of you already wants to go back. You return to the ludus a little taller, not in stature, but in presence. It's not something you try to do. It just happens. Victory hangs off you like a new scent, subtle but noticeable. The moment you cross back into the courtyard, people take notice. A nod from Cassian. A sideways glance from the older veterans. Even Gaius, leaning against a post, sharpening his dagger, gives you a small grunt of approval. Not exactly a parade, but not nothing either. Your gear is taken for inspection. The gladius will be oiled and hung up until the next time. Your shield checked for dents. Your helmet wiped clean. You're given fresh linen and a bowl of water to scrub the worst of the sand from your skin. It's not until you see your reflection, faint and warped in the polished bronze of the water bowl, that it truly sinks in. You survived. You won. Your first proper bout. And you didn't just crawl away, you walked out. Historians still debate how often new gladiators were expected to die in their debut fights. Some claim a third never lived past their first match. Others believe it was closer to 1 in 10. Either way, the risk was real. And you, for now, are not a statistic. That night, A small celebration is held, not official, of course, but quiet and respectful. Someone smuggles in a handful of pomegranates. One of the younger men plays a flute he carved from olive wood. The tune is clumsy but oddly soothing. For a little while, the ludus doesn't feel like a prison. It feels like a strange kind of home. Cassian pulls you aside. "You didn't look nervous," he says. "I was." He shrugs. "Doesn't matter. You didn't show it." You both sit for a while, saying nothing. The stars are out. The moon is sharp and clean. In the distance, the faint hum of Rome drifts through the air, the clink of tavern goblets, the far-off laugh of a patrician's dinner guest, the occasional bark of a stray dog. Here, in the dirt and silence, you're still living in the same city. But you might as well be on another planet. Later, as you lie on your mattress, the memories start to unspool. The Thraxes faint. The exact angle of your counter. The look on the editor's face. You replay the match not as a memory, but as a study. A mental rehearsal for what comes next. Because you know this isn't the end. You've been noticed now. And with notice comes pressure. The next morning, you're up early, not because you're ordered to, but because you can't not. Your body is sore, but not injured. A small miracle. You stretch, eat a quick meal of eggs and olives, and step into the yard before most of the others are awake. You run drills. Alone. Shield work. Lunges. Rotations. Not for points. Not for praise. For readiness. Because now, the expectations have shifted. Florus appears mid-morning with a stack of wooden placards, mock-ups for arena posters. He shows them to you without asking. They've painted your likeness in black and red. Exaggerated. Yes. Your arms are broader, your scowl more intense. But it's clearly you. Your title is scrawled across the bottom, the wall, He Who Stands. You blink at it. It's surreal. You're marketable, Florus says, tapping the placard. People like you. Steady. Heroic. Big enough to trust. Small enough to root for. You're not sure if that's a compliment or a branding strategy. Maybe both. He flips to the next poster, a rematch scenario. Your name. And a different opponent. Retiarius. You flinch slightly. Not because you're afraid, but because you've seen what they can do. Net. Trident. Dagger. Unorthodox. Fast. Unpredictable. Florus sees the hesitation. Don't worry, he says. People love the contrast. Net versus wall. Speed versus strength. You'll be the favorite. But favorites bleed like anyone else. Still, you nod. Training resumes that afternoon. This time, with purpose. You're paired with new sparring partners, agile types, meant to simulate your next likely match. You practice disarming nets, dodging tridents, reading long-range attacks. The trainers are harder on you now. The mistakes you used to get away with are called out. Loudly. You're not anonymous anymore, one says, after you flinch at a feint. That was a rookie move. And you don't get to be a rookie again. It's not cruel. It's truth. You've stepped onto a bigger stage. And the spotlight, once on you, does not dim easily. That night, you're allowed a brief walk outside the ludus walls, under escort, of course. Just around the block. Enough to breathe air that hasn't been warmed by sword swings and sweat. You pass a group of children playing with carved sticks, pretending to be gladiators. One of them holds his shield high and shouts, "I'm the wall." You stop in your tracks. The escort chuckles. "You're already a household name," he says. You watch the boy for a moment, his wild grin, the way he stumbles through an imaginary dodge roll, how he taps the dirt dramatically when he pretends to lose. He doesn't die, though. None of them do. They play. Then they go home. You turn back. Walk the rest of the way in silence. Inside, the torchlight flickers across the courtyard, casting long shadows against the walls. You lie in your bunk and stare at the ceiling beams again. Same cracks. Same tally marks. But the man beneath them? Not quite the same anymore. The rain begins just after dawn. A slow, deliberate drizzle that turns the ludus courtyard into a patchwork of mud and puddles. The sky is low and heavy, draped in grey, and for once the sun is nowhere to be seen. A rare blessing, in a place where most of your battles, literal and otherwise, are fought beneath its pitiless stare. You're up early again, not from nerves this time, but habit. Training has become your gravity. You feel wrong without it. So you step into the muck and begin your warm-up, slow and steady, your limbs pulling through the mist like an ox cart in thick clay. Today is different. Today, you're training for the rematch. You've fought once now. Survived. Even earned some cheers. But none of that matters if you stumble in round 2. Your new opponent is a retiarius, a net fighter. Quick, agile, theatrical. The kind of gladiator who twirls his trident before the strike, who gets the crowd screaming with every close miss. It's a style built around showmanship and surprise. Which, to be honest, is your exact opposite. So now, every moment of training revolves around closing distance. Reading angles. Learning how to spot the flick of a wrist that means a net is about to fly. Your shield becomes your lifeline, your anchor. You drill catching and tangling nets in its rim. You practice rolling to shed the thing if it lands on your shoulder. It's not pretty. None of it is. But you are becoming what they want you to be, a wall that moves. Your trainers don't coddle you. They're harder now, more exacting. No room for rust, barks Lupinus, circling you like a vulture. You're not new. You're expected. And there it is again, that quiet, impossible pressure. Once they chant your name, you no longer belong to yourself. You belong to them. The sparring is relentless. One drill has you facing 2 retiarius stand-ins at once, forcing you to choose whether to defend or advance. The first few times, you hesitate, get tangled, stabbed, humiliated. But by the 4th round, something clicks. You drive your shield up into one fighter's chest, hard enough to knock him backward, then pivot low to block the second's trident. In the echo of that move, there's silence. Then Lupinus gives a rare grunt of approval. Better. You collapse to the ground, panting, soaked with sweat and rain. Mud cakes your shins. Your shield hand is trembling from the effort of absorbing strikes. You've lost count of how many times you've slipped, how many bruises are blooming beneath your skin. But still, better. Historians still argue about how diverse gladiator combat styles really were. Were the fights truly this specialized? Or did schools like yours invent categories to give the crowd a sense of order? Most agree it was a bit of both, part tradition, part theater. Whatever the case, your next role is clear. You are the immovable. You are the weight that slows the chaos. And if you can endure the storm of the retiarius, if you can outlast the dancer with the net and fork, then maybe, just maybe, you become more than a momentary name. That night, your hands are too sore to eat properly. Cassian tosses you a piece of bread and says nothing. He knows the signs. You chew slowly, jaw stiff, body humming with fatigue. Then something strange happens. A visitor arrives. Not to you, specifically, but to the ludus. A senator's aide. Clean tunic. Carefully oiled hair. He speaks only to the Lannister, but the ripple moves quickly. A private match has been requested. An elite gathering. Small audience. High stakes. 3 gladiators will be selected. Your name is one of them. Not because you asked. Because the senator's son saw you fight. And now he wants to see you again. There's a long pause in the yard after the news is read aloud. A few men give you nods. One claps you on the shoulder. But mostly, they go quiet. Because a private match isn't like the public ones. No crowds to sway opinion. No editors to offer mercy. Just the will of the host. Sometimes, that's better. Sometimes, it's not. You sleep poorly that night. Not from fear, but from anticipation. Your mind won't stop replaying sequences, counters, footwork. You see the net flying at your face again and again, each time finding a slightly different way to respond. By dawn, you've already strapped on your sandals and stepped out into the yard. Rain again. The city smells like wet ash and sour wine. The ox cart waiting for you is more ornate this time. Polished wheels, a better top, a driver who smells like rose oil. They've even lined the bench with wool. You don't relax. The roads are slick, and the ride is slow. As you rattle through the streets, people watch. Some whisper your title. One points and says something about the one who didn't kill. You catch only fragments. You reach the estate by midday. It's massive. Columns, gardens, marble fountains spouting water even in the rain. The arena inside is smaller, but perfectly groomed. White sand, gold-trimmed seating, a canopy to shield the audience from the drizzle. There's food being served, laughter, perfumed guests, and in the center, your world, the pit. No roaring crowds. Just silk-clad senators sipping wine and murmuring about technique. A private stage. A curated death trap. You're led to the prep room. Florus is already there. He adjusts your straps, polishes your greaves with a cloth, and whispers, "Look steady." Even when you're not. You nod. Then step into the light. This time, no gate creaks open. No horn. Just a polite round of applause as you appear. And across from you, there he is. Your opponent. Trident glinting. Net twirling in slow, practiced arcs. The dancer. The storm. Your test. You lower your stance. Grip the shield. Feel the breath in your chest go still. And wait for the first move. The silence before the strike is the sharpest sound you've ever heard. Not the crowd, there is none to speak of. Just murmurs and the clink of goblets above, where a semicircle of Rome's most comfortable citizens lean forward, reclining on padded couches beneath draped linen. You can almost smell the olives and honey they're snacking on. You smell rain-soaked sand, your own sweat, and the sour leather of your grip. Your opponent begins circling. His net dangles from his right hand, dragging just slightly in the sand, then lifting in a slow, deliberate coil as he tests its weight. In the other, a barbed trident glimmers faintly in the overcast light. He's leaner than you. Quicker. Even graceful. You know his goal: entangle, confuse, exploit. He'll aim to trip you, blind you, trap your arm or leg. You're the wall. His the tide. He moves first. The net unfurls, F-whip, with a flick of the wrist, just a test throw. He doesn't expect to catch you yet, and you don't flinch. Instead, you step deliberately to the side, shield up, and wait. He grins beneath his helmet. They always try a fake throw first. You remember what Lupinus told you: if you chase a ghost, you'll fall into a grave. The second toss comes quickly, real this time. A whirling shape hurtling toward your chest. You crouch, bracing. The net hits the shield and clings. He yanks, trying to pull it sideways, but you twist with it and snap. The tension breaks. The net slips off, useless. Now he's unbalanced. You surge forward. Your gladius punches for his thigh, but is already skipped back, barely. The crowd hums. This isn't like the arena, where blood brings roars and sand flying draws howls. Here, it's almost polite, measured. You're being watched, not worshipped. Still, a match is a match. You press. Your next swing is low and wide, forcing him to leap back again. This time, he tries to jab with the trident, aiming not to kill, but to catch your shoulder and draw blood. You pivot. It scrapes your shield instead, sparks flaring. You both recoil, breathing hard. He changes tactics. Circles left now, weaving the net tighter, ready for another cast. You step right, deny him the angle. It becomes a dance, oddly beautiful. Your boots crushing soft sand, his net flicking like a serpent's tongue, the trident flashing in arcs. Historians still argue how much of this was choreographed. Did gladiators agree on signals, rhythms, when to fall and when to rise? Were they athletes, or actors? Warriors, or puppets? Here's your answer. It's both. You're improvising in a play with real blades. He fakes high. You duck. He feints left. You stay still. And then, he overcommits. The net sails wide, missing entirely. He reaches to recover it. But you're already there. You slam into him with your shield. Hard. He stumbles. You strike. Your gladius slashes across his ribs. Not deep, but clean. Red spills, dark against his tunic. He falls to one knee. And just like that, the fight changes. He's no longer the dancer. He's a bleeding man with a weapon too long to use up close. You're the storm now. You pause, just for a breath, then knock the trident from his hand. He's down. Net limp behind him. Wounded. Breathing fast. The crowd above murmurs, as though watching a chess piece fall. You raise your gladius. He doesn't beg. He just meets your eyes. Then, behind you, a voice. Hold. The senator's son stands now, a slender man in fine robes, sipping wine like he's announcing a change in dinner course. He makes a small, dismissive gesture. Spare him. It's not mercy. It's boredom. The match is over. You step back. 2 attendants enter to drag the retiarius away. One casts you a glance. Not pity, not respect. Something in between. You're led back beneath the arena. You're not panting. Not bleeding. Not even bruised. But you feel spent. Like every nerve has been on fire for half an hour and is just now settling into a dull, smoky quiet. Back at the ludus, there's no parade. No cheering. Just nods. Quiet congratulations. A mug of watered wine and a bowl of hot lentils waiting on a bench. You eat slowly. Not because you're savoring, but because it feels earned. That night, you walk the yard alone, rain still misting the stones. The match replays itself behind your eyes. Not the strikes, but the spaces between them. The waiting. The reading. The steady grind of pressure and patience. You've learned something. That being a wall isn't about holding still. It's about when to move. And how. And why. You lie in your bunk long after the torches are put out. The night is cool. Quiet. You hear someone snoring gently across the room. A bowl clinks in the wind. Your title still echoes faintly in your ears. The wall, but it feels different now. Not heavier. Not lighter. Just real. And for the first time since you were thrown into this world, you close your eyes without expecting to wake up in a different one. The match fades, like a storm rolling off into the hills. You're back in your bunk. Safe. Alive. The blood has stopped pounding in your ears. The tension in your shoulders begins to melt, little by little, like candle wax under a soft flame. Outside, the rain has become nothing more than a whisper against the roof tiles. Each drop a gentle tap, a reminder that the world keeps turning, even when the sand stops stirring. You lie there, letting the quiet hold you like a warm blanket, the sounds of the ludus falling away, boots in gravel, steel in scabbards, the scratch of straw shifting under restless bodies. You're not in armor anymore. Your hands are empty. The fight is behind you. What lies ahead doesn't matter now. Not tonight. For now, it's just you, and the darkness, and the long slow rhythm of your breath. Maybe tomorrow brings more training. Another match. A harder opponent. Or maybe a meal you actually enjoy, or a joke from Cassian that makes you laugh too loudly for the hour. But right now, you are safe. You are still. And you are enough. Let the images fade, of sand and blood and bronze, and let yourself sink deeper into the quiet. The tension leaves your body, your jaw slackens, your breath slows to a soft sigh. Let it all go. You've earned your rest. Fighter. Sleep now. You're home.